Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Strand Report podcast. My name is Garrett Zatlin, and yes, if you are hearing my voice, that means there is no Ben today. No Ben today. It was just a hard weekend. Just couldn't get him, and we tried working around it, and it just didn't work. So no worries, he will be back, and I know everyone wants to kind of have him talk about all the transfer stuff and kind of participate in all the speculation for this fall, but don't worry, he will be back. He's coming throughout the summer, and we'll be analyzing all the moves, all the preseason rankings and whatnot, all the news. And for today, I'm just going solo. Crazy busy week, crazy busy between travel, a ton of administrative stuff, continuing to update you guys about the transfer portal and what's happening out there in the transfer market. So just a solo podcast today because that's just what works. But we're going to have a lot to talk about. So many transfers to talk about. In fact, I started writing them all down, and I didn't even write down all the ones that we've reported on. I just wrote down all the ones that I was like, oh, we should probably talk about this. And I realized that it was going to be like a 3-hour podcast if we did that. So we're going to try to knock out as much as we can today. It'll be the biggest and best headlines that we can talk about. When Ben comes back, we'll maybe give him like a good, 10 to 20 minutes to kind of get some bullet fire reactions and thoughts on those moves. But we've waited too long. The offseason's here, and we need to start talking about transfers and whatnot. So before we do that, ratings and reviews got a +1 on Apple. Really nice review from Mid Distance Dad. It says, 4 years ago, my son started running and I knew absolutely nothing about distance track and field. I discovered your podcast, and now that he's a senior, I know slightly more than absolutely nothing about distance running. Keep up the good work, and I hope you are discussing my son and his friends in the coming years. We do too. Thank you for your support. Great, great, great review. Very good review. Nothing new on Spotify. We're still at 204 there, but that's okay. Thank you for leaving that rating and review. If you haven't already, please go do that. Helps us out a lot. Thank you. Okay. Transfers. Just you and me. Mano y mano. We're just chatting here. Try to get a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Depends. I usually ramble. That's usually how these things go. But we're going to chat today, and we're going to first start with the news of Solomon Kipchoge, which the Strand Report did break. He is in the transfer portal. Now, obviously, there was a lot of controversy surrounding his name in particular. And I say that because he just finished up his freshman year, and he is currently listed at 29 years old. So he's going to be a 29-year-old sophomore. Look, I think I've already discussed this previously. We can have this conversation a different day, but just know that I do acknowledge that he's a 29-year-old sophomore. So I get it. But regardless, he's still talented, and he's still incredibly aerobically fit. He was one of the more aggressive front runners. He did not race at the NCAA XC Championships. He was listed as a DNF. I don't know if he was a DNF or he was a DNS. I actually want to say he just stepped off for early in the race. I don't know, but his time's solid on the track, 13:35, but really it's the sub 60-minute half marathon PR, and it was the win at the Arturo Barrios Invitational in 22:01. I'm not a big times guy on the grass, but that's pretty legit. Runner up at the Big 12 XC Championships, won the Mountain Regional Championships as well. In terms of raw aerobic fitness, I would argue that he's maybe one of the most naturally talented, if not the most naturally talented. He has not really shown that yet in the NCAA, and at least she's not shown that on the biggest stages in the same way that maybe like Haptem Samuel has or Ishmael Kipchoge has, right? But this guy is aggressive. He's a strong front runner, and there's a realistic world where he wins a national title individually. I'm not even kidding. I really think that happens, or I think it could happen. Excuse me. So now the question is, well, where does he go? And I gotta be honest, I've struggled with this a lot, like a lot. I've been thinking about like, well, where on earth could someone of this caliber possibly land? And you would think like, Oregon could be in the mix, right? They've recently gone out and they've grabbed on the women's side, a Kenyan star of their own in Diana Cheretich, Kittori Kadali from Kenya, the 800-meter star who ran 142 last summer. But is he like really Like he's not typically the prototypical name that Oregon goes after. Um, so maybe it's not them. For me, I kind of can't help but lean on teams like Alabama and Arkansas and Iowa State. Really, Arkansas being the one that I think he could realistically land at. Arkansas is very aggressive with their recruiting. They're very aggressive with transfers in distance running. Um, they're very unafraid to go after international names, specifically those on the African side. They need a true long distance star. They've lost Yassin Abdallah. They've lost Patrick Kiprop. They've lost Karamiego. The amount of lost scoring that they have lost, and they're also losing Ruben Reyna, who on the track gives them great mile prowess. They're just losing so much talent, but they will now have the room and the ability to go all in on a top name like Solomon Kipchoge. So in theory, if I had to guess, if I had to just guess and speculate, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I would guess that Arkansas is going to try to be ultra aggressive and try to land someone of his caliber, because this is a guy who can also, if developed properly and he's able to run the 10K properly on the track, he's clearly better on the grass than he is on the track. But let's say he develops into a great 10K runner, then you're looking into a guy who, can realistically score at the national meet as well. And Arkansas, as we all know, is a big track and field focused program in addition to cross country, but they want to be just as good on the track as they are in cross country. So I like them there. Iowa State, another team that's aggressive in the transfer portal, very happy to bring in top African distance stars. They too are losing, a handful of long distance stars. Saeed Mikel being one of them. He's in the transfer portal, but he doesn't have any cross country eligibility remaining anyways. I want to say Sanel Masando's out of eligibility. Maybe one other guy as well who I'm missing. But Iowa State needs another guy. They need another star, at least if they want to maintain their spot in the podium and even title race. So Iowa State would probably be in the mix too. Alabama traditionally doesn't bring in transfers, but what they do is they do bring in true, insanely raw, talented long distance names from Kenya. And I don't know if he fits the mold as a transfer, but one more name and then all those names kind of click in on the same day. That's yet to really happen. That's been the one knock on Alabama is they have tons of talent, but their top stars just don't deliver at the national meet. But it would be hard not to go after Kipchoge, who fits the Alabama mold, right? So I think he's going to end up there. It's a little awkward to think of Oregon as a spot, but I guess he could. I guess that could be an option. Oregon, I don't think at this point really cares how they get it done. They just want to get it done. And with the young team that they have and Kipchoge having 3 years of eligibility left, it's hard not to consider that. Leah Stevens, another TSR name, another name reported by TSR in the transfer portal. The NC State talent who was fantastic in the fall of 2023. She has not competed since April of 2024 when she ran 33:09 in the 10K at Penn Relays. Still, Leah Stevens was a stud, elite high school recruit. She initially committed to Florida State. Didn't happen there. I think there was a coaching change, and she flipped her allegiance then to NC State. Was fantastic with the Wolfpack. Yeah, really, really, really good. I mean, 4th at Joe Piani, 14th at Nuttycombe. And remember, Nuttycombe in 2023 was significantly more competitive than it was in 2024. It's more like, think pre-nationals from last year. So she was 14th as a true freshman in that race, 8th at the ACC Extra Championships, and 43rd at the 2023 national meet. 3 spots off her All-American honor, arguably her quote-unquote worst race, cross-country race, and yet she still finished 43rd as a freshman. Went on to the track, 15:55K, 33:09, 10K, has struggled to stay healthy a lot. And that's been a major issue. So, are you getting a naturally talented woman? Yes. Are you getting a woman with tons of eligibility? Yes. Are you getting someone who's proven that they could be a low stick? A name who was at one point almost listed, I think in the top 20, she was listed in the top 20 of our individual rankings in the fall of 2023. Yes, you're getting that. But the risk that comes with that reward of landing her is she going to be healthy? Is she going to be able to put together multiple seasons in multiple training blocks? Can that happen? And I can just tell you this: I've talked with a couple coaches actually who have, in some way, shapes, or form, spoken to her. The landing spots they may not be the traditional powers that you think about. It may not be Oregon. It may not be Washington. It could be. I'm not saying it's not. I've only talked to two coaches about this, but from what I've gathered, it seems like she may go down a slightly, I don't want to say she's going to like the NAIA, right? Or she's going to D2 or D3, or she's going to like a mid major. I'm not necessarily saying that, but it does seem like there is maybe a step away from the traditional powerhouse, just from the two coaches that I've spoken to and what I've gathered. Um, so it'll be interesting to see where she ends up there. I'll be interested to see if she follows through. Um, Personally, I think Florida makes a lot of sense. You wonder, hey, she committed to Florida State. There was a coaching change. Does she try to go back to Florida State, even under a new staff? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Could Florida be in the picture? Um, on paper, that's exactly what she kind of fits into. Colorado, from like a long term perspective, as they try to build up their women's distance program again under Carlson. Now, again, I know that those two programs are plenty established, and they kind of go against the grain of what I just said. But on paper, you would think that she fits in there. It was just a matter of does she actually end up there? So let's see what else. What else? What else? There's a lot of names here on this list. Let's stick. Speaking of Florida, yeah, let's go Judy Chepkowick from Arizona State. Strong cross country runner. Also ran 8:59 in the 3K this past winter. Did not race in the spring, so she has 4 full seasons of outdoor track eligibility, 3 years elsewhere. But she was excellent on the grass. So good, so good. You've got third at Arturo Barrios Invitational, fourth at Big 12s, fifth at the West Region XC, and 30th as an All-American as a freshman at the NCAA XC Championships. Exceptionally talented. Exceptionally talented. 3 full years is going to be a long-term answer for when Hilda Olamomwe leaves. Now, per Tifers, Olamomwe does have one more season of XC eligibility. I think she uses it, right? I think that makes sense. But Olamomwe, let's say regardless whether or not she comes back, let's say she does. You get her, and now you get another low stick with Judy Chepkowick. We saw tremendous progress made by both Bethan Morley and Tia Wilson, two United Kingdom talents who were really strong on the track and were really promising on the grass. I think they were both top 90, top 80 finishers at the NCAA XC Championships. This is a complete team. This is like a really complete team on the grass, at least. And I think there's a lot of upside with Morley, and I think there's a lot of upside with Wilson. And let's assume that, okay, even if Olamomwe's not at 100%, she's still maybe a top 10 name, especially with an entire offseason and fall of kind of training and developing and trying to get back to where she was at the end of last fall. So I really like Florida as a team. Through 4 runners, at least, you had Chepkowick. There was a level of a punch and of a firepower there that I think they were kind of missing last year behind Olamomwe. And I think Chepkowick kind of like bridges that gap between the elite low stick star that Olamomwe is and the really high impact support scores behind her. So I really like that. And I think Palmer's probably not done yet recruiting. He's been ultra aggressive. I have a feeling that he'll probably go out and grab another name if he can. Um, Through 4 runners, they look like a borderline podium team. Borderline, not quite there yet, but through 4 runners, yeah, I think there's at least the potential there. They will need help. They'll need another impactful name. They don't have much room for error. They will need to be consistent and reliable, and they'll need to deliver on the national stage. But Chepkowick kind of completes this lineup in a way that they didn't really have last year. They were still good last year. Natural talent, I think, got them to what? 12th on the national stage? I could be wrong on that one, but let's check it out. Where did Florida place? Yeah, 12th. I'm so good. They placed 12th on the national stage last year. So, yeah, good fit. Really nice fit. Nice win for Florida. Let's talk about Virginia. Virginia has been, you want to talk about aggressive. Virginia's just said, screw it. We're getting everyone. The men, they've brought in Harrison Witt from Princeton, Samuel Robin from Princeton, Daniel O'Brien from Princeton, Nicholas Benson from Princeton, and then Brett Gardner from NC State to Virginia. He was also heading there as well. Let's talk about the Princeton connection. It's very uncommon that you see four guys like this, but let's put it this way. I think some people who maybe aren't totally familiar with the transfer circuit and how it works. The Ivy League does not allow you to stay and or compete in athletics for more than 4 years. So after your 4 years in the Ivy League are done, you can't come back and compete, even if you have the eligibility. So naturally, that's why you often see a lot of Ivy Leaguers, veterans, say, hey, I'm trying to jump out and use my final year of eligibility. Phoebe Anderson, who we'll talk about from Columbia a little bit later, she went to NC State, right? It's not because she's, I guess, against Columbia, or she is or isn't. It's just a matter of she's out. She can't use her eligibility past, those 4 years. So she is she's heading out, but all these Princeton guys were out of eligibility. And it's also not forget, Jason Vigilante, the coach at Princeton, was previously the distance coach at Virginia. I don't know if he actually was the head or the director or just the head distance coach. I don't remember. But the point is that there's a very clear Virginia connection there. It's very obvious, right? And so it's just, again, strong academic school, right? Matches up well with Virginia and Princeton. And athletically, in terms of roster fits, goes quite well. Harrison Witt is a 352 miler, a guy who has advanced to the finals of the NCAA 1500 meters and mile over this past year. He had a big breakout year. Now he did not advance out of the prelims in either. I'm sorry, he did not advance as an All-American in either of those races, but the dude's incredibly talented. 219 for 1,000 meters. He's a perfect star miler to pair with Gary Martin for this next, 2026, where you want to talk about DMR threats. Harrison Witt, Virginia is going to be a nightmare in the DMR, not just with him, but with Samuel Rodman. Rodman ran 146. He had plateaued for years and seasons on end. He was a great freshman, and then he just plateaued after that, except this past spring, where he got fourth in the 800-meter finals, top half All-American, tactically brilliant in the postseason, like really, really good Rodman was. Improved his PR to 146 mid, 146 low. Just fantastic name overall. You put Harrison Witt and Sam Rodman together alongside Gary Martin. There's not I don't know what team can construct a DMR that would beat that, as long as those guys are at the top of their game. The 1,200 meters might actually be Harrison Witt's best event, but that's just an insanely good relay. I just don't know how you beat that. Not in 2026. I don't know how. Daniel O'Brien, Nicholas Benson, those guys are be more on the long distance side here. Let me pull up some of their credentials there. Benson only has cross country left in terms of eligibility, one season. Daniel O'Brien has one season of cross country, 2 seasons of outdoor track in theory, or at least up to that. O'Brien, very consistent, very steady. His ceiling's not crazy high, but he will give you a high floor. And that's important for a Virginia team that very much needed that last fall. So O'Brien has made 3 appearances at the NCAA XC Championships. In 2022, he placed 117th. In 2023, he placed 94th, excuse me. And then in 2024, he placed 166th. Now, again, some of those are better than others, but at least from 2022, 2023, we can see there's a high floor to this guy. He's going to give you some depth, stability, consistency and experience. He was 53rd at Nuttycombe last fall. He was 12th at the Mid-Atlantic Regional XC Championships. He was 8th at the Ivy League XC Championships in 2022. This is a guy who maybe those results don't jump off the page, but Virginia last year had a hard drop off after Nathan Mountain, which was their top 3. They had Gary Martin, Will Anthony, and Nathan Mountain, all of whom I believe are coming back, which is good. But the back end needed to be better, and they just weren't. O'Brien fixes a little bit of that. Not entirely, right? He has to actually deliver, But at least now, like, he's there, right? I don't know if Wachtel has eligibility, but Wachtel was a national qualifier in the 10K this past spring. Maybe he finally translates his talent over to the grass, right? Will Daly was a national qualifier in the 5K, ran 13:36, I want to say, in the 5K. What if he translates that over to the grass, right? All of a sudden now this is beginning to be a much more depth friendly lineup for Virginia. And of course, there's other guys that they can come in and develop, and they've had some really good recruits over the years. But that's O'Brien, right? And then let's think about what. Oh gosh, where's the other name I'm looking for here? Nicholas Benson. This guy was an All-American in cross country back in 2023. We forget that. The ceiling for Benson is crazy high as an All-American. Now, granted, he went on a hot streak, and that All-American result was a little bit of an outlier, a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of an outlier. But this guy was still eighth at the Ivy League XC Championships. He was 77th at the NCAA XC Championships last fall. He was 42nd at the Nuttycombe Invite. He was actually at one point he was fourth at both the Ivy League XC Championships and the Mid Atlantic XC Championships in 2023. And then he was 29th place All-American in 2023. That's what it was. On the track, really good, 359 mile, 28:25 10K. He has no eligibility on the track, just cross country. But regardless, you're getting another guy where, like, okay, maybe if he's not an All-American, who cares? He still raises your floor tremendously. And like the upside of being an All-American, on paper, all of a sudden, like, now Virginia, and I know we've been so high on Virginia for so long, going into so many seasons, being like, well, this is their year, and this is their year. And then they get it in the national meet after a good cross-country season, but like kind of meh at the same time. And then they kind of underwhelm. But there's so much talent in just those names alone. Again, from all the developmental guys, from those two transfers, that you're like, man, is really like, how could Virginia not be a top 10 team this fall? And not only that, but Brett Gardner is a grad transfer now to Virginia. He comes in with an 8:29 steeplechase PR, which, by the way, I think in terms of athlete program pairings, it's the best one so far. It's the best one of all the moves that we've seen. Brett Gardner to Virginia is the best one that we've seen. Virginia needs more help in the middle back end portion of their lineup on the grass, but Gardner raises their ceiling tremendously. He has low stick potential, All-American potential. He may not be there quite yet, but at the end of the day, he gets the job done. And he's a top tier steeplechase talent who won the ACC title in the steeplechase, and Virginia has a history of great steeplechasers. Nathan Mountain is one of them. Yassine Sato is the other one. Now they get another one to pair up with Mountain in Gardner, and I just think it's a phenomenal fit, and very few pairings are better than Gardner to Virginia. So I think Gardner, you add him in there with Benson, with O'Brien. I am trying not to get overly excited about what Virginia could do this year, because they've burned us really bad in the last couple years, really. And a lot of it's been like, well, we think they can do this. We think they can do this. But with this lineup, there's not a lot of speculation. We don't need to speculate. Like, I think we know what we're getting out of like 6 guys, which is pretty unique, especially for Virginia. So, really, I'm going to be fascinated to watch that team. Really fascinated. Let's talk about NC State. They're bringing Phoebe Anderson from Columbia. She does not have cross-country eligibility. Kaylee Armitage from Furman. I really like her. I think she's a huge pickup. And then Fleur Templier from Portland. Quickly, Anderson, strong name, great 5K, 10K talent, has the potential to be an All-American on the track, has not done so yet, but at the very least, brings a veteran presence, can score on the track. Like her a lot, but cross-country wise, not really going to be she's not going to be a factor. She has no eligibility, right? Armitage and Templier are exactly the names that NC State needs. They're exactly the names. NC State last year had a tremendous 1-2 punch with Hannah Gapes and Grace Hartman. They were arguably, if not the best duo in the country last fall, and they both return. In fact, a heavy portion of NC State's lineup from last fall is set to return. That lineup placed 8th at the national meet last year in what was supposed to be a quote-unquote rebuilding year after winning 3 straight team titles. Now there's the potential for this to be really interesting because Gapes and Hartman, again, elite 1-2 punch, but they needed help behind them. They needed a lot of help. But Angelina Napoleon just ran 9:10 in the steeplechase. And I've been the guy who has preached for years, hey, steeplechase does not always translate to cross country. I would be very, very surprised if a 9:10 steeplechaser was not an All-American, or was at least not a top 50 name, top 60 name on the grass. I mean, 9:10 is such a different level for a steeplechaser. Again, she didn't run that at the National Meet Outdoor Championships. She ran that in Paris in the Diamond League. Napoleon did. So you have a third star there. Like it's hard for me to dance around this idea that like a 9:10 steeplechaser is not going to be another star. So you have a third star there. Now you need to close out the rest of that lineup. All right. Bethany Michalski, 15 40s runner in the 5K as a freshman this past spring. Kate Putman, Putman, fantastic. Really liked her development as a miler. She moved up to the 5K really well. I think she's going to be a future star for NC State. I really do. I think her development's come along really well, and I think she's going to be able to contribute on the grass. Right? Alicia had a few really nice moments last fall for NC State as a middle lineup scorer. And I thought, with more development, maybe she's able to be a factor in this kind of race or on this team, excuse me. And then you bring in Kaylee Armitage, who I think is one of the more established and like reliable distance runners. She's run like 4:45 in the mile, 9:14 3K, which is okay. But where her greatest value is that 2023 she placed 7th at the Loyola Lakefront Invitational. She was 71st at the Nuttycombe Invite, 97th at the NCAA XC Championships, and then last fall she was 24th place at the Nuttycombe Invite, which was not as competitive as the Nuttycombe Invite traditionally is. That's just because pre-nationals and Nuttycombe switch places. You don't care why, just due to the national meet schedule. And she was 24th at that meet last year, 67th at pre-nationals. And it looked like she could have been a top 80 name in the country. Fortunately, ended her season at the Southeast Regional XC Championships with an 18th place finish. Regardless, she's incredibly reliable. Again, floor raiser, will give you consistently good, even great results. Not quite a low stick, but not just like a support back end piece who's just steady and reliable. Like she's got a little bit of umph to her in terms of what her talent is on the grass, and I think that's massive. That's massive. It's exactly what NC State needs. They need reliability. They need predictability. Despite the growth and the development of all their rookies over the last year, they still need someone more veteran with more experience, right? Like, again, Alicia and Putman and Mahalski, or they're all inexperienced sophomores now, right? And even Brooke Robber, who's had challenges with trying to stay healthy, maybe she's healthy this year, but we don't know that for a fact. And Armitage, at the very least, is going to give them a really stable name, and she might be the reason why this team gets back on the podium. And if so, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I wouldn't. Now, joining Armitage at NC State is Fleur Templier, who I think has more upside by comparison. She's not as proven. That said, but she's run I think 8:56. I want to say in the 3K. Really strong name there. She was top 30 at the West Regional XC Championships. Let's take a look. I want to make sure I get her credentials right. That was in this article. Yeah. So Templier, she ran 4:39 in the mile, 8:56 in the 3K. She was 11th. I'm sorry. No, she was 11th at the West Regional XC Championships. She was 23rd at the Nuttycombe Invite last fall, and she was runner-up at the West Coast XC Championships, West Coast Conference XC Championships. She's really talented. really talented. Like she's only got a handful of results, but those results were all great. They're all really good. So I would be really excited. Like I don't know if it's going to be this fall, but maybe the year after. She's a low stick. I don't think that's unrealistic. So when you get the upside of her and you get the stability of Armitage, I don't know if I'm ready to call NC State like a podium lock yet, but I would argue that you probably have a podium favored team. I mean, especially with NAU losing a few key names, right? BYU loses Lexi Halliday Lowry, maybe one other veteran who I'm not thinking of. Trying to think of some of the other teams, like Oregon loses at least one or two key names, at least one or two. So yeah, it's going to be. I think NC State has a real shot, not just at getting on the podium, but like I wouldn't totally put it past them that they get back into the national title mix. Like, I think that's realistic. So that's NC State. Let's see here. What else did we want to chat about today? Colorado. Yeah, let's chat about Colorado. Why not? Colorado, on the women's side, bringing in from Canada, Avery Pearson, 203 half miler. Nice pickup there. Ashley Jones, the low stick from Tennessee. Addison Dornkamp, the standout rookie from Alabama. And Juliet Forstrom from Portland, promising name after a solid freshman year. Let's Pearson, we can kind of 203, nice half mile chops, can help with some DMRs in the future. Not really going to make a splash on the grass, or at least not expected to. Ashley Jones, this is the name where we thought that she could follow Carlson from Tennessee to Colorado last summer. She didn't. Now she does. And she goes from Tennessee to Colorado to rejoin her coach, and she'll now be a low stick for them. She's been a two-time top 60 finisher at the NCAA championships, great 5K runner, or at least solid enough. She's extremely reliable on the grass. She's just been solid across the board. Let me try to get a few results here. Let's see. Yeah, she's been in the top 65, at the NCAA XC championships twice, and she has twice also placed in the top 10 at the SEC XC championships. The Colorado women lacked last year. They just didn't have much firepower. It was just an ugly season. And I think they needed an ugly season in order to essentially hit a hard reset. So that's, yeah, it was not a pretty year last year, point blank period. Now, they had a few key names, right? Jesse Sikor had a tremendous year on the track, right? Really good. And Abby Netchnecki, am I getting that right? Solid year on the grass for her as well. She was, I think, top 20 at Arturo Barrios Invitational, top 20 at Big 12s. She had a solid outing at the NCAA XC championships. There's two solid names to build around. Sikora, I think, has low stick potential. Netchnecki can be one of the better support scores in the country this year. And now you add in Hannah Prosser, who ran 32:49 for 10K this past spring. And, she was fifth at the Northeast Regional XC Championships in 2023. How does she do? And now you add in a low stick in Ashley Jones. And all of a sudden you can begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But wait, Addison Dornkamp, a top 100 finisher at the NCAA XC Championships as a freshman for Alabama. She will now be with Colorado. And Juliet Forstrom, 33:30s, I want to say, for the 10K as her PR there. She was 27th at the West Regional XC Championships. I want to say she was 10th at the West Coast Conference XC Championships. Together, that's a good group. Like, that's 6 names I just listed where I go, I feel pretty good. Like, I don't think many of them are going to be stars, but Jones and Sikora's low sticks are really good. Prosser seems to have some really good upside. And even if one of those names doesn't work out, they still got 5. They got a lot of upside. I think almost every woman, all of those women who I just named, have significant amount of upside. Now, some of them are still young, like Netchnecki, like Forstrom, like Dornkamp. right? Like you have to rely on some youth. So I think there might be challenges with reliability and consistency, right? There's 3 names who I just listed who are going to be sophomores. So there's an aspect there where, like, is this fall going to be perfect for Colorado? No. But are they going to be ranked? Yeah, for sure. It's just a matter of where we think they're going to be ranked. Like I just don't know. Like on paper, I don't see too many flaws. I don't think they're perfect, but like, is it like unrealistic to call this team a top 20 team in the country for this fall? I don't think so. They have 3 new transfers. Well, they have 4 new transfers, 5 if you count Prosser from the winter months, I want to say. 4 of those transfers are long distance oriented. And then they bring back 2 like really solid contributors. And oh, by the way, lost in all of this, what happens? What happens? Just hear me out. What happens if Natalie Cook's back and like actually really good? Like that lingers in the background that I think we forget. Now, I think we've been saying that for the last few years. It's been a while since we've seen that. We are wishing her the best. We hope she gets healthy. Chances are, based on recent events, that's not going to happen. But somewhere back there is a really, really, really talented superstar. Just has to be healthy. All right, we're going to wrap this up. There's a handful of names that I know I have not yet talked about, but I want to save some for Ben. I want to save some to kind of dive into and talk about throughout, the rest of the summer. And there's going to be more names and more and more and more names coming through over the next few weeks. And then, of course, we'll prep for the rankings. But let's chat about North Carolina. Got 1 big key name on the women's side and 2 key names on the men's side. Let's talk about the men. Ethan Strand, not coming back. Parker Wolfe, out of eligibility. 2 top 10 names in the country in cross country, out. That stinks. Just no way to dance around it. That really stinks. Expecting North Carolina to be the same, top 5 team that they were, top 10 team. Let's see, where did they place? They were 6 last year at last year's national meet. Expecting them to be the same 6th place team that they were last year, it's just not realistic. It's unlikely. But let's take a look here. I want to make sure I'm getting all this right as I click through some of the names here. Parker Wolfe and Strand are gone. Colton Sands, who was 52nd at the NCAA XC Championships last fall, he's better than that. Like he's run 7:39 for 3K and 13:20 something, 27, maybe for 5K. Like he's a borderline, like not a borderline. He is going to be a low stick. I think he's going to be an All-American. And I don't think it would be surprising if we ranked him as a top 40 name for this fall. But the dude's really good. Really, really good. So you have a low stick there. Then you bring in Torward Tarragano from the United Kingdom. He runs 7:47 for 3K, and he's run 13:30s for the 5K. And as I'm pulling up some of this here, make sure I'm getting these names right. Yeah, he's run 7:47 for 3K, 13:32 for 5K. He was also the individual champion at the British Universities and College Sports Bucks individual championships, cross-country championships. He was also 19th at the 2024 European XC Championships back in December. So that name right there, look, is that an All-American? I don't think it would surprise anyone if he was, right? Like that's a really talented name. Now, the BUCS Bucks, it's not nearly to the caliber that NCAA is. It probably isn't even at the same level that the Big Ten is. But still, that's a low stick caliber name. Would it surprise anyone if he was top 60, top 50? No. In fact, it would almost be surprising if he finished anything lower than the top 80 at the NCAA XC Championships. So that's another name. And then the other name being Chasen Hunt from Lynchburg. Now, I'll admit, I think Chasen Hunt is more of a track-based name. His PRs are really solid. 4 flat in the mile. I think he can actually run a little bit faster. 7:56 3K, 13:41 5K. He is the NCAA D3 outdoor 5K record holder. He's also really good on the grass too. He was 14th at the NCAA D3 XC Championships. But it's important to note that, like, just because he's the NCAA D3 outdoor 5K record holder doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the next Alex Phillip. I think, one, Alex Phillip was just simply better at the D3 level than Chasen Hunt was. And then two, Phillip took a leap that we just didn't expect. I think Phillip was also better positioned for the 10K than Hunt was, or Hunt is. Now, this does not mean that Hunt can't be incredibly productive, but I don't know if I necessarily see Hunt being a low stick. Can he be? Sure. I think he can be. I think it's realistic. But I think it's more so going to be like top, if he cracks top 100 at the national meet, it's a good day. Could he be top 70, top 80? Sure. But I think his value is very like, he's like Ethan Strand light, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be like an All-American star at the D1 level, but I think he can be a really solid contributor, and he's going to make a really strong impact and punch at the middle portion of this lineup. So I think North Carolina now, you paired Tarragano with Hunt with Sands, Colton Sands. Got a really strong core of three there, and I think I really like the younger guys too. I think there's a lot of promise there. Will Coogan, by the way, was 82nd in the NCAA XC Championships last fall in what was admittedly a huge race for him. That was a significant run, but he was also 72nd at the Nutty Comb Invite last fall. He was also 21st at the ACC XC Championships. You know, like, Coogan is a really strong name as well. And through 4 names, he was listed as a junior. Does he come back? I don't know. I assume he does. But he's become really steady and really reliable. And through 4 names now, it's pretty good. And there's a ton of youngsters coming in, like, who've either been in this program, they're going to be sophomores or redshirt freshmen or true freshmen. Like, they've got another loaded recruiting class coming in. Like, I just refuse to believe that there's that much talent on UNC's roster and they can't find a 5th guy. They'll find a 5th guy. I just don't know who. I don't know who that's going to be. And this is all, again, assuming that Coogan comes back, right? Like, I'm taking a look here at a few key names from this past spring on North Carolina's roster, seeing if there were any guys who stepped up. Like Joseph Pone, 1401 as a freshman, pretty solid, not bad. But everyone else has kind of been out. Like, Aiden Neal was great over 1,500 meters, really good. Not quite, though, a longer distance guy. So, it'll be interesting to see what UNC does and how they construct it. I still just think there's way too much talent at the back end of their lineup. And then Vera Sjoberg, the Boston U star who had a breakout spring season, she is heading to North Carolina. We reported that she was in the portal, was that 2 or 3 months ago? But she comes in after a much improved spring campaign, running 4:07 for 1,500 meters, 4:28 in the mile, 8:57 3K, and 15:27 in the 5K. She was an All-American, 8th place All-American in the mile this past winter. And then after getting 11th in the 1,500 meter finals at the NCAA Outdoor Championships, she doubles back a couple hours later to get runner-up in the 5,000 meters at the national meet. On the grass, outstanding as well. 42nd place at the NCAA XC Championships last fall. North Carolina is losing Taryn Parks, who was a cross-country All-American and really strong over 1,500 meters, especially tactically. Tifers also suggests that Fatima Lanis and Bryn Brown are out of eligibility for cross-country. Brown could return to track, in theory. But that's 3 star low sticks. Those are 3 All-Americans, albeit at different seasons. But Parks, Alanis, and Brown are 3 brutal departures. And expecting UNC to be the same 11th place team that they were last fall. Was it 11th place? Yep, 11th. Expecting them to be the same 11th place team that they were last fall is hard to imagine. Now, who knows? Maybe one of those three names, there's a waiver and they come back. There's always one, I'm always hesitant to look at Tiefers and say like, oh, well, they're definitively leaving when, maybe they get a waiver and something happens. But regardless, Sjoberg herself is not going to be able to replace the scoring deficit left behind from all three of those women. But can she replace one of those women? Yeah. In fact, I think she can actually be better on the grass than any of those three women were, like consistently as well. I think Sjoberg is definitively better on the track than she is the grass. But like, would it be a total shock if Sjoberg was in the top 25 at the NCAA Exit Championships? I don't think so. I think it's plenty realistic. She was runner-up. And I know that the 5K at the outdoor national meet was a bit more tactical and played a little bit more into her favor, but she was still in the double, right? Like, she still ran 15:27 in the 5K. She was 42nd last fall before she broke out. Like, she has tons of natural talent. The question now is, like, what can she do individually, and how much can she make a dent in the lost scoring left behind from Parks, from Alanis, from Brown, right? And there's some really strong names from North Carolina on the women's side, right? Like Eva Klemmbell, really solid name who I like a lot, who I think she'll be coming back with some great value, right? Let me take a look here to field their names, making sure I'm not missing them. Brown was an All-American last year. Kleinbell, right? Sierra O'Shea. She was 126 last fall at the national meet. It's just a freshman. Quiet on the track, admittedly, but there's promise there, even if some of her cross-country results were better than others. But North Carolina is not going to be the top 15 team that they were last fall. Not right now, at least. But I think Sjoberg allows them to stay ranked and keep them within that. I don't know if top 20s. I don't know if I'm at top 20 yet, but I think she allows us to keep them ranked, which is important. And also she replaces the value of, I think, Parks almost entirely from not just cross country, but on the track as well. Miler who can step up and be ultra effective on the grass. So, all right, guys, that's it for now. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 7 names here that I didn't get to. And that was just some of the names I quickly wrote down. There's even more beyond that we haven't spoken about, but we have the entire summer to do that. 47 minutes in, we'll cut it there. So hopefully we'll get Ben back next week. Thank you for listening to the Strand Report podcast. We sincerely appreciate it. Go leave a 5-star rating and review. We got a ton of news. We got a ton of transfers. It's all coming. We're going to do some way too early cross-country previews next week after maybe. Still debating. Still have to figure out that timeline. But go check that out. Go be patient and wait for that. Maybe try to do one kind of fun little video piece of content the next couple of weeks here that I'll try to do with Ben. If not Ben, maybe Mara. And then before you know it, preseason rankings. No one else out there puts the time and effort into their preseason rankings that we do. It's the whole thing that we focus on. So that's what our entire staff is doing. In the meantime, they're all getting some much needed rest, and they're all just straight studying for the cross-country rankings. So, all right, guys, that is all I got. I'll talk to you guys later.